Hi, I'm Lauren from LSP Actions, Focus Dialing, Lemon Sky Photography and Enchantipics. In this tutorial, this editing tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how you can add a background behind your subject in Photoshop. And we're going to be using this Cake Smash image to add a balloon background behind using one of the Enchantipics gallery balloons. You can edit along using your own images, or you can download the sample images included on the tutorials page and follow along with this one to nail down those tips and techniques I'm going to show you, so then you can go ahead and use these in all your composite editing in Photoshop. I'm using Photoshop Creative Cloud for this tutorial. If you're using an older version of Photoshop or a limited version such as Elements, not all of the options may be available, so you might need to make some substitutions as you go. So let's dive in and get started. Now the first thing I'm going to do with this image is actually crop it out to add more space around the subject. But if your subject is, smaller in the scene and you've got a lot of background there, then you don't need to worry about that too much. So I'm going to grab the crop tool and I'm actually going to crop this outwards. If you hold down Shift, it will keep the same aspect ratio of your image. So let's crop this out nice and big. Let's just zoom in. Let's come in a little bit because I want to leave some space around for a balloon arch. So let's pop him about in the middle. Now you can use the content aware fill if you want to. If you already have some objects such as a few balloons down here, maybe bits of cake and things, it may do a funky job. You just never quite know with Photoshop, but let's go ahead and give it a go anyway and see what it comes up with in its content aware fill. That's just filling now. It did a really good job. You just never quite know. If you end up with odd objects in, you can come up here on the patch tool, on the spot healing brush, so just hold it down and get the patch tool. You can drag any of the strange things out and replace them. And that's one way of doing it. If you own any of my LSP actions, such as LSP Select and Fix, you can also use this to help edit out any funky areas of the background. You can also use a brush and brush it over. There's lots of editing techniques you can use. If you've already shot out, you've already got your normal shot in the camera, you don't even need to crop. To add the balloons in that you've downloaded onto your computer, come up to File, choose Place Embedded and locate those downloaded files, normally in your Downloads folder. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead. Let's get started with this one first. Now you can see this in your Layers panel. It comes over the top of your subject as a complete image. So I'm just going to go ahead and resize that. It's in a transform box anyway when you place it in. If you don't see the resize option, come up to Edit and hit Free Transform, or you can hold down Control or Command and hit T on your keyboard. Next up, we're going to want to take the opacity down a little bit. You can do that on this opacity slider up here. And we're doing this because it means that we can now resize and tweak this image a little bit more if we want to. So I'm going to come up onto the Move tool and just drag this around. How about we have the balloons above his head? That's going to be a nice easy edit for this one. And that way we don't have to make a hair selection around the subject. So I'm just going to click the little eye to turn this one off for now to hide this layer. Click on our main image. And I'm going to come up to Select and choose Subject. If you're on an old version of Photoshop, you won't have Select Subject, which is why I really recommend Creative Cloud, because it makes things a lot easier. If you're on an old version, you might need to take a Select tool and draw around your subject. Next, come up to Select and choose Select and Mask. If you're on an old version of Photoshop, it will come up with this window where you can use this brush to come around the hair a little bit to refine that selection. If you're on Photoshop Creative Cloud, Select and Mask will look a little bit like this. It will open up a whole new window. I have my view mode on Overlay on red, just so we can see where the cutout is. So make sure all those areas that you need selecting are actually selected here. There's a little bit of glitzing around the bottom. I'm not too worried about that because I'm not replacing anything over the bottom. Hit OK. And we have these marching ants around our subject. So come back onto your balloons, turn them on, and now come down here to the bottom with those marching ants still there and add a layer mask. The icon for layer mask is like a rectangle with a circle inside. So add that on and you can see what that's done. It's added black, which means hide, and white, that means show. So it's actually showing this background on this selection that we've made of the subject. It's completely the opposite effect of what we want. So click on that layer, hold down Control or Command and hit I, and what this will do, it will invert that selection. So black will become white, white will become black. And now you can see on the layer mask we have a white background and a black cutout of the subject. Layer masks are a little bit like a lottery scratch card. White means show, black means hide, and it allows you to do non-destructive editing. So now we're going to grab a brush, and what we want to do, we want to kind of paint this line a little bit here, paint any seams away. Black means hide, so I'm just lightly, can you see, sweeping over like this. And we have the balloons above our subject. Now what you can see, I don't know how well you can see on your screen, the blue of the original seamless background is a kind of a very pale faded grey blue, whereas the blue of the Cake Smash background is a much bolder blue. So I'm going to correct that on the Cake Smash layer, the balloon layer, sorry. So come down here, this is your adjustment menu, the little icon that's a half and half circle. Click on this. I'm going to add a hue and saturation layer, and that's going to appear here above the balloon. If it doesn't, if it's underneath, drag it to the top of your layers panel. Now we only want this to affect the balloons layer, so right click and hit create a clipping mask, and you'll see it's made a little arrow clipping that into the balloons layer. So now any changes we make are only going to be editing the balloons, not the whole image. Because the background of this is a cyan blue, that's the colour I'm going to choose from the drop down. If you're unsure of what background colour you've got, maybe it's purple, yellow, orange, I'm not sure, you can click this little hand and click on the background and it will show you which colour range we're within. It's cyans for this one. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take the cyan saturation down, and you can see already that's merged it a lot better with the original background. If I was to take it up, it would make it very bold. So we're taking that saturation down, that's how much colour you're allowing within those cyan range. And just like that. If you want to paint the effect off anything, you can grab your brush, set to black, and just here, and you can paint this off. So I'm going to paint off some of the cyan balloons so they're a bit bolder. But the same goes with any colour correction you are doing. You see we have a little bit of a light halo around this little boy's head where the background is lighter. So I'm actually going to make a change now to the Cake Smash background, the little boy background. So clicking on that layer, I'm going to add a levels layer, adjustment layer. In the same way we added hue and saturation, the little half and half circle here. And I'm just going to bring the middle slider to the right, and this is going to darken down the image. All I'm looking for is the area around the head. I'm not looking for anything else. So you can also bring the bottom right slider in a little bit as well. I'm just literally looking for this piece around the outside. When you're happy, click on Levels, Control or Command I to invert, that means it's hidden that effect. Grab your brush, set to white, and I'm just going to lightly bring this in around the edge of the little boy's head. And that just means that we're just kind of helping the two images blend together where there is that refining. You could also click on your balloons layer, add a levels there, make sure to clip it in, right click, create a clipping mask, and we could bring the lightness up a little bit, so that's merging the two images together. If you don't want to affect the whole layer, if it looks a bit washed out, you can Control or Command I and just paint it on, but I think it looks quite nice affecting the whole layer. Now I'm just going to paint a little bit off these balloons here. So we have the two images and they really are blended quite nicely together. There is still a slight discrepancy I can see in the background, so I'm going to add one more levels layer just to tweak these balloons a little bit. Moving it up and down sometimes I find, even though it's extreme, can help you find that middle ground. A bit like tuning a guitar, going up and down until you get that perfect area. Because the balloons are quite high contrast and the little boy is not, you can either add some contrast, adding it as an adjustment layer to the underneath layer, or you can take contrast away from the balloons by merging it down. Just to get these two images fitting together nicely. This is what compositing is all about. It's making sure the light direction matches, it's making sure the lighting, the contrast, the shadows and the colours and everything matches nicely. Now one thing that's irking me a little bit about this image is how bold this icing is on the cake compared to the background. So So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to calm that down a little bit. This is just a bonus extra because it's tweaking me. So on the background I'm going to add hue and saturation, use the colour picker to select those cyans again, and I'm just going to take them down a little bit and move the lightness up. Control or Command I to invert, white brush, and painting that on. If you're a Cake Smash photographer, you can download my complete Cake Smash Qt editing Photoshop set, which has got everything done for you inside, including cake layers changing, brightness editing, contrast, everything we've seen today, and about 150 more things in there that you can use for your editing. So let's see there before and after, adding in those balloons background. Now let's try the same thing again. I'm just going to make a new layer now, just from the background. Let's try the same thing with a little bit more of a complex balloon background. So I'm going to place the other one that I downloaded, File, Place Embedded, and let's go for this big balloon arch here. I'm going to take that transparency down so we can see where we're resizing it. Now you notice this does have a floor and background included. So you want to think on your original image, where is the floor and background join, and make sure that that joins up, because that will really help you in your depth perception of this image. So I'd say it was about here. It's about where the original floor is. Okay, now we can see we don't have enough room at the bottom of this balloon base, which is fine. Because we've placed it into the Smart Object, you see this little icon here on the Layers panel. You can double click that and it will go ahead and open these balloons as a new image. Now we can reverse crop. So make sure Delete Crop Pixels is off, Content Aware Fill is on, and just drag this down a little bit. See this empty space, you hit enter. Photoshop's going to do its best to fill it. Whether it will do a good job or not, nearly. It's placed a few weird balloons there. See, Photoshop is a machine, it doesn't know, it's just trying to add what it thinks you want there. So go ahead and grab the patch tool, that's on the Spot Healing Brush menu. I'm just going to go over anything that shouldn't be there and drag it out the way. So patch replaces textures, it won't replace colours or tones, but it will replace textures and shadows. Shading, light and dark. So there we go. So I've just gone ahead and replaced those things. Right click to flatten this image back down again. Control or Command S to save. Hit OK, or you can come up here to File and choose Save. Get rid of that, and what it's done, it's saved it back to the image we were working on. So let's just reposition that using the Move tool to make sure that the background is in the right place, and hit Enter. The next thing we want to do is make sure the shadows are in the right place. So in this image the light is coming from the left. You can see here's the light hitting, and here are where the shadows are. In the balloon we actually have two lights in play, lights from the left and lights from the right, as you can tell by the reflections, but the most light is coming from the left in these, so that's an absolutely fine. If it was coming from the wrong direction, you can come up here to Edit, and you can come on to Transform and flip horizontal, and that will flip the image the other way. Make sure your light is added up, because sometimes when we're in the midst of editing we don't see it, and then somebody points it out after and you kick yourself. So always make sure your light adds up. Now we're going to make that subject selection again, so we're going to use Select Subject as we did before. If you don't have these options, I really recommend Creative Cloud, or you can add a mask and make your own selection. So I'm doing exactly the same thing as before, I'm just making a little refinement around the hair. Adding this as a layer mask to the balloons layer exactly as before, and again it's inverted, it's done it the wrong way, so Control or Command I, invert, I is for invert, and you can see that's added in. Very, very nice, except our subject is floating and the background is much darker and bolder than the original, so let's make some changes there. What we really want to do is bring these original shadows back in. And because this is on a seamless background, the easiest way to do that is paint away some of this balloon background. So I'm going to grab the black brush tool on the balloon layer. Currently the brush is set to white, so I'm going to change that to black. Normal, 100% opacity, around 25% flow, and I'm just going to paint some of this off. And what this is going to do is going to add that original shadowing back in. But also we can see this real discrepancy of colour. You can also see, because the original background is quite light, that we have some lightness around the hair. So we need to change both. First, let's change the balloons to make it lighter. Add the hue and saturation layer, clip it in just as we did before, right click clipping mask, choose the cyans, or purple or green or red or whichever colour the background is. Let's just take that saturation down a little bit and bring the lightness up. I'm going to play with both of these until it's kind of really matching your original background. Of course that doesn't, so we want to really match that in. Now you can see this has changed the colour of all of those balloons as well. You can play with the bottom bar a little bit if you want to. So what we're going to want to do is mask this off those balloons. So Control or Command I. First of all, I'm going to use the white brush to paint this along the bottom, just so we're merging those two layers together. And we definitely want this behind our subject. And I'm just being quite careful, using a soft brush to not get this on the balloons too much. Now what I want to also do is change the toning of the original a little bit by adding a bit more colour in. So I'm going to go to levels and I'm just going to play with those darks, and I'm watching the area around the hair here. So we're just going to darken that in until it matches. Control or Command I. Using a white brush, I'm just going to use a very soft white brush. I'm just stroking this around the edges. So we're just kind of working on both layers at the moment to blend them together. Could also take away a little bit of this background using a black brush, a little bit of the balloon background from behind the subject. So hide that levels for now. You can see this is putting rather a white halo in, but that's okay. So really we have several things going on at once here. We're trying to adapt this background, the original image, to suit the balloons, and we're trying to suit the balloons to adapt to the original image. So this halo that I've painted on, this dark halo, don't particularly need that anymore, so I'm just going to blend that in a little bit now and then turn it down on the opacity and take this off our subject's skin and face. So now we've blended this background quite nicely together. Let's see, that's our before, and that is the balloon image that we've added in. Oh, just take that off. That's the balloon image that we've added in, and we've added some levels underneath the balloon to darken the subject, and we've added some colour changing above the balloon to match the background. So that really isn't a bad match at all. I'm just going to add a little bit more blue to this background, so clicking on the background layer, adding a hue saturation. I want to probably select the cyans again, but again, whatever colour your background is, if you use the colour picker it will help you figure that one out. And I'm just going to enhance this saturation a little bit now of the background, just to match. It's a little bit intense on the back, so I'm going to grab the brush, set to black, and just lightly take this off the area behind the subject. And just keep tweaking and using black and white brushes, white to show and black to hide on any of the effects you've added. So there we have before and after, adding those balloons behind, and here we have before and after, adding these colourful balloons behind. So I hope that video tutorial helps when it comes to adding a background behind your subject with the hair selection. Matching, make sure you match the light, that's the thing that you really need to do. Ideally before you really get stuck in is notice the direction of the light in the image. And then you can use these adjustment layers using clipping masks and layer masks and adjustments to brush these on, like for example the hue and saturation, changing the colour, lightening, darkening, to get everything matching. As long as you're using layer masks, painting it on and off, that's really helpful. So I hope this tutorial helped. You can edit along by downloading these images and try the exact same things that I'm doing here. Do feel free to pause the video as you go, take it slowly, and this will really help you when it comes to your composite editing in Photoshop. I'm Lauren, thanks for watching.